أهلا بكم في هذه المقابلة الخاصة.
Welcome to this special interview. The threat of using nuclear weapons has been increasing significantly recently. Additionally, fighting between Russia and Ukraine has intensified, particularly in areas with nuclear power plants. Meanwhile, North Korea has been showcasing its nuclear-capable missiles as Iran continues to accumulate highly enriched uranium. These developments raise serious questions about global nuclear safety and how the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, is addressing these changes. Rafael Grossi, the Director General of the IAEA, joins Arabiya to discuss these issues. Mr. Grossi, welcome to this special interview. Let me start with your recent visit to the Russian Kursk nuclear power plant. What did you observe there? And how concerned are you about the possibility of a nuclear incident in that area?
Well, we do. You were rightly saying that this nuclear power plant is, in fact, closer than what you mentioned. It's 30 kilometers maximum from the place where forces of another country have been seen or identified. So it is obvious that with an active combat situation so close to an operating, and I would like to stress this fact, unlike what happens in Zaporizhia, this is an operating nuclear power plant. And there have been informations about certain projectiles, hits there, drones, etc., by the owners and the operators from the Russian Federation. So obviously, with our mission to protect nuclear safety and security, we had to go there and ascertain the facts by ourselves.
Have you discussed with the Russian side what kind of clarity they are seeking on this matter?
Well, I don't know, maybe we should ask them, or you should ask them. What I can tell you is that precisely for the sake of objectivity, for the sake of impartiality, for the sake of being precise and not being speculating, is that the IAEA only informs or confirms when it can independently assess information. What I think happens here is a typical phenomenon that we have been seeing since the beginning of this war, and maybe on other occasions as well, in the sense that sides are expecting the IAEA to say or to confirm what they would like the agency to say. And I can, on a rational level, I can understand this, but of course we have to stay clear from politicizing things or from taking sides and accusing or pointing fingers. When we, as an inspectorate, name names or mention something, it should be when there is undeniable, absolute certainty about the origin of an event. In this case, this, of course, is not present. When something there happened, we were not present there. We have come to determine to the best of our ability what happened, and we will continue in case, God forbid, and let's hope that no attack or no projectile, missile or something else will hit this nuclear power plant. And then if in the possession of irrefutable evidence, we would, of course, never hide it from the public view. But in the current circumstances, we inform what can be assessed and confirmed.
You're also scheduled to visit Kyiv soon. What issues will you be addressing during your discussions with President Volodymyr Zelensky?
There's a lot to discuss with him. Of course, the situation at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant is one, but as you know, there is considerable stress on the energy infrastructure of Ukraine, and in particular the nuclear infrastructure. Don't forget that apart from Zaporizhia, which is controlled by Russia now, there are other nuclear power plants, Rivne, Khmelnytsky, and South Ukraine, that host an important number of reactors, 9 of them which are still operating, apart from the 6 they, of course, lost to the Russian Federation for now. And there is a concern about them, about their continued operation. The IAEA has a permanent presence at these facilities, and we are going to discuss how to better protect them.
Have the Russian and Ukrainian sides adhered to the IAEA's recommendations to avoid fighting around nuclear power plants to prevent a disaster?
الوكالة برأيك؟
It would be difficult to say whether they are complying with our request, but I think it is very clear that the fact that the IAEA is present, is active, is reporting almost on a daily basis, is engaging with both sides. And I have had the opportunity, as you know, to meet several occasions with President Zelensky, President Putin as well, and talking to the technical sides. I think there is an effect. There is undoubtedly, there is an effect that our involvement in this whole thing is having. From there to say that the situation is perfect, no, I wouldn't say so. And mission will only be accomplished once we are in a more stable situation and there is no longer a threat on the nuclear power plants. But certainly the fact that we are the only international organization present, acting independently, talking to both, has a very concrete, tangible effect on the unfolding of things.
Lately, we have seen some countries threatening to use nuclear weapons. How does the IAEA view these threats? And are you in communication with said countries?
التي تلوح باستخدام أسلحة نووية كذلك؟
Well, let's not forget what was said and repeated even by the leaders of the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, who are the ones that are recognized in the Treaty on Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons as owners of nuclear weapons. Nuclear war can never be won and must never be fought. This principle is always valid, and it's even more valid today. Use of nuclear weapons could lead to unstoppable escalation and to a situation which could be completely out of control. So we try to engage with countries. We try to help to de-escalate situations that may lead to that. The IAEA can play a constructive role also in avoiding this extremely dangerous manifestation of tensions internationally, the use of nuclear weapons.
You recently expressed your desire to visit Iran and meet with the new president, Masoud Pezeshkian. Have you received a response from the Iranian side? Or will we see you in Tehran soon?
Yes, I have. I have received a reply from the new president, Pezeshkian, where he acknowledged my previous message to him, where I indicated the need for us to engage as soon as possible in order to re-establish a constructive, fluid, concrete dialogue in order to have the credible assurances and the guarantees about the peaceful nature of Iran's nuclear program. As you know, there are points that still need to be clarified and answers to be provided to the IAEA, which have not been given so far. So there is a need, there is an expectation in the international community about this, and I was glad to receive a letter from the new president saying that he agreed that we should meet, and that we should try to do it at the right time. I hope the right time for him is as soon as possible. So I suppose that in the not too distant future, otherwise this would be, of course, useless, we will be able to meet. I am ready to come to Tehran and to continue the dialogue and, of course, to engage with the new president, as I have done with his predecessors.
Since the death of the former Iranian president, Ibrahim Raisi, there has been a notable silence from the IAEA and yourself regarding the Iranian nuclear file. Did Tehran request a pause on this issue, or was this a decision made by the agency?
No. I think this was the result of the natural unfolding of events. When you have the loss of a president and a foreign minister with whom I was in very direct and I would say regular contact. Don't forget that I had visited Tehran in May, and at that time I had a important, long, very substantive exchanges with late Foreign Minister Amir Abdullahian. And on a previous occasion with President Raisi. So, of course, the fact that there was a transition, I was in touch with the acting Foreign Minister, Dr. Ali Bagheri Kani, during this process. But of course, he made clear, and I found that logical, that until a new government would be in place, the possibility of a dialogue would not perhaps be as conducive to concrete results as a conversation with the new government, those who are going to be leading the Islamic Republic in the next few years. This happened, elections took place, we had this exchange. Now a cabinet, as you know, has been confirmed. And as a foreign minister, we have someone whom I respect and I know very well, Dr. Arakci, who used to be a nuclear negotiator, so someone who is aware of the details of this process. So I'm really looking forward, as I said, as soon as possible to re-engage with them now that there is a new government in place.
In your latest report on Iran's nuclear program, you stated that Tehran has accumulated more highly enriched uranium and is nearing weapons-grade levels. Is there a specific amount of enriched uranium that Iran currently possesses, and at what enrichment level?
Well, yes, the IAEA continues to monitor through its inspectors who are present and working at all the uranium enrichment facilities in Iran. We are checking on the enrichment process at 60%, 20%, 5% as well. And what we have seen is that this process is continuing. They continue to enrich uranium at a rate of around between 7 and 9 kilograms per month, with an inventory of approximately 170 kilograms, give and take, of that amount, and much more on the lower levels. All of those things we regularly report to our board of governors, and I am going to be doing that these days, given that very soon we will have another session of the board of governors of the IAEA.
On the topic of inspectors, Mr. Grossi, you mentioned that the level of inspections and operations the IAEA is conducting in Iran is not where it should be. Can you elaborate on this point? And to what extent is Iran cooperating with the agency's requirements?
Well, yes, we believe that given the levels of that the program has reached, both in terms of the technologies available to them in the form of last generation ultra centrifuges, given the amount of nuclear material that they have accumulated, given the developments in other technological areas, related or part of the nuclear program in Iran, more visibility is needed. So we have been discussing with Iran as to what other measures, apart from those that Iran is, of course, committed and obliged, if I can use the word respectfully, to comply with, because it's part of the normal inspection work of the IAEA. But we believe that other things, in terms of the production of centrifuges, uranium mining and processing, and other issues that are also relevant for me to determine the capabilities at the moment, would be very important. And precisely this is part of the conversation we were having with the previous government, and that I need to have with the new government.
While negotiations are nearly at a standstill, does the IAEA currently have a mechanism in place to monitor all nuclear facilities in Iran, or are some monitoring and inspection activities suspended?
وكذلك عمليات التفتيش أيضا.
Well, we do, as I mentioned, answering to one of your previous questions, we do have a very important, I would say, presence in Iran, inspecting in accordance with the safeguards agreement that we have in place with Iran. But at the same time, we have been contemplating the possibility of expanding some of these capabilities to other areas, given, as I have been saying, given the importance, the breadth and depth of the Iranian nuclear program. But of course, this is contingent to us having a good bilateral dialogue. And also, I should mention here how Iran perceives this, because one of the points that my Iranian counterparts have been making for a long time is that they would require lifting of sanctions from Western countries and other forms of incentive, if I can put it in such a blunt word, but some form of rapprochement with these countries in order for them to accept to take additional voluntary measures. So as you can see, this is not limited to a bilateral conversation between me and Iran. The way in which other stakeholders, other players are involved will also have a very important, decisive, I would even say, influence in the kinds of approaches and attitudes that Tehran might be taking.
Recently, Iran's new foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, with whom you have a good relationship, stated that the current nuclear agreement cannot be revived and that it needs to be reopened and some parts revised. Do you think it's possible, amidst American and Iranian demands, to bridge the gaps and revive the deal?
إحياء هذا الاتفاق من جديد؟
Again, I would make a distinction here. I would say we can bring positions closer. There are possibilities to come to agreements. But if you put it in terms of the JCPOA being revived, I think you should consider that the JCPOA, in a certain sense, has been superseded by the realities of the program in Iran. You must remember that this JCPOA spoke about an old generation of centrifuges, which is, of course, no longer the defining type of equipment that Iran has today. They have spinning centrifuges that produce much, much more, much faster, with a lesser amount of machines. To give you just an example. So it is obvious that, you may still wish to call it JCPOA, but there will have to be, and here I see that you quote Iran's new foreign minister, and he is referring to the fact that as it existed, the JCPOA has been made obsolete by the advancements in almost every area of the nuclear program of Iran. So you will need to, you may call it the same way, but you will need to have important, very important adjustments, and updates.
I'm sure you understand the concerns of some countries in the Middle East and globally regarding the possibility of Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon. My question is it possible for Iran to secretly develop a nuclear weapon without the knowledge of the IAEA or other monitoring agencies?
Well, certainly I hope not. That would be a tremendously serious development. I think that the IAEA, with the existing current inspection and verification capability, would make that extremely improbable. Extremely improbable, because we would be able to detect deviation of nuclear material and other signs, if you want, of a program which is deviating from the correct path. I think here what we need to do is to make sure that any such development would simply not be contemplated, and that the possibility, as you were mentioning, of agreements, meetings of minds, where people would weigh the consequences and the advantages or disadvantages, in this case very clear to me, of acquiring nuclear weapons, which would make the country a pariah, outside the international law, the nuclear non-proliferation treaty regime, and other things as well. So my impression here is that we should redouble our efforts, and I trust that there will be goodwill on Iran's side, but we must roll up our sleeves and get down to work soon.
Saudi Arabia's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Adel Al-Jubeir, informed you a few months ago that the kingdom has a large stockpile of uranium and intends to utilize it in a manner similar to oil. How do you evaluate the current communication between the IAEA and Saudi Arabia? And what is your view on Saudi Arabia's ambitions in this regard?
I think it's perfectly legitimate. I think the peaceful uses of nuclear energy is one of the clear paths to a decarbonized future, which is, of course, a gradual process, a transition in the terms that the countries in the climate change discussions have been, and the energy minister of Saudi Arabia has been playing a key role in these negotiations. I'm very close to him, and I talk to him very, very frequently. The only thing here is, as for every other country in the world, that this program, whenever it takes shape, will be firmly established in close cooperation with the IAEA, respecting the safeguards and the non-proliferation rules that are applicable to all other countries. And I have no reason to doubt that this will be the case. So we are in contact. We are following their consultations with other countries from which they are trying to get the technology, so that we are at par with these developments, and so that we can make sure that there should be no reason for any concern the day that the kingdom decides to also, like other countries in the Gulf, for example, which are now already benefiting from clean energy source like nuclear energy.
Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, thank you for all the insights you've provided. Thank you for your time.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.